Hey YouTube, Rick Wilson here. Going to do a Yellowstone update. Hang in for this whole video because you're going to like this one. Because we had a series of earthquakes underneath of the lake, and the most recent one's right here. This one was today. Anyway, we're going to take a look underneath the lake, and most of you people have no idea what's under that lake, and we're going to show you. So we're going to take a down deep look, no pun intended, under the lake, and I'll show you what's down there. But let's start off. The earthquake today, right here, is a 1.4. It was a 4.4 kilometers deep. Now you got a couple other quakes here I'm not even going to talk about. One's a 0.6 and one's a 0.5. They're out here in the middle of nowhere. But this one's right near, the one that happened today, this 1.4, it's right near the one dome. And then after that, now here's what we're going to mainly talk about today. Is this lake and West Thumb here. This, well, if you look at the lake like a palm, like this is the thumb, and that's why it's called West Thumb. And but there was a whole series of quakes there. The first one was right there, and it was a 1.1. It was at 2 kilometers deep. And then 45 minutes later, there was a 2.3 right there, and that was at 1.9 kilometers deep. And then 2 minutes later, down here, there was a 1.8, and it was at 1.2 kilometers deep, so it's really getting shallow. And then 11 minutes after that, there was a 1.5 right here at 1.6 kilometers deep. And this is a little bit concerning. Anything that happens under the lake is a little bit concerning, like this, where you get a whole series of quakes. Because what I'm about to show you, I'm going to show you some slides here of what could happen. Now, first of all, well, let me go to the graphs. Let me go to the graphs next and show you these quakes. We've got two different graphs here. Okay, here's the first quake. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. And this is the fourth one right here. And then we'll go to West Thumb. And right here was the first one. Right here was the second one. That was the third one. And this was the fourth one. And now we're going to go back. I'm going to go back and talk about the lake here. Because this part of the lake didn't used to be there. The last large eruption was 600,000 years ago. And after that, Lake Yellowstone was this right here. Now this didn't form until 150,000 years ago. Now you got to remember, the last major eruption was 600,000 years ago. But 150,000 years ago, which is 3/4 of the way since the last eruption until now, there was a humongous hydrothermal explosion that created this huge crater. It's a crater. This part of the lake is a crater, and then this little stretch is where the water from the lake rushed into the field of void, and this is how this was all created. And this is actually a small caldera. So inside the larger caldera, the large caldera formed 600,000 years ago. This caldera that created West Thumb was created 150,000 years ago. Now we're going to show you some other stuff that's under the lake here. Hold on. Okay, this is a map of Lake Yellowstone. Here's the entire lake here, and here's West Thumb. And this is just to give a general feel. I got some good pictures we're going to go over of what the bottom of this lake looks like. But this is just a map here. And now this line around here is the caldera for West Thumb. This was a huge hydrothermal explosion that just took this whole chunk out 150,000 years ago, and then the lake filled it in, and it's now part of Lake Yellowstone. Now all these red areas that you see everywhere, these are hydrothermal vents that are active today. Now here's your one lava dome here. You can see all the fault lines that run along the same length as it's being uplifted here. This end of the lake is being uplifted too, and the lake's moving south slowly. And but you can see how active all this stuff is going on under the lake that we can't see. Now I got some other pictures that are unbelievable here in just a second. But this is just to show you there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the lake, and here's another explosion crater right here. But I've got pictures of these that better explain this. Now let me move on to the next slide here. Okay, now this is what the bottom of West Thumb looks like underneath the water, and this thing shows a lot of different stuff. There's hydrothermal vents all around the edge of the thing. Now right here's something new that they didn't know about. When they use like sonar to get the shape of this thing, and here's an explosive crater that they didn't even know existed until just recently. So this was a hydrothermal explosion that created this crater, and there's more of these that I'm going to show you on the other part of the lake. But what happens is you can get just a hydrothermal explosion because, like I said, you've seen all the red areas on that last one showing all the different hydrothermal vents, all the different geysers. There's actually like underwater geysers under this lake, and now all this area here is lava flows from previous eruptions. This is only a real true part of the deep part of the lake here. The rest of it's more shallow due to lava flows. There are hydrothermal vents. These little dark areas right here, those are hydrothermal vents, and you got them along here. You see little bumps in the water there. I think you can make it out on the video here. And but these are all, there's a damn fly or something in here. And then right here is former lakeshore terraces that have been submerged. The lake hasn't always been as deep as it has now. There's been times where it's been more shallow. There's been times where it's been more deeper. But this whole part of the lake didn't even exist till 150,000 years ago. Because like I said, this entire thing blew out of the ground in a giant hydrothermal explosion. That would have been a bad day to be in Yellowstone. And actually even this one would have been a bad day to be in Yellowstone. But let me move to another part of the lake here. This is the northern part of the main lake. Right here's the Yellowstone River coming in. The hotel's over here. Now, like here's the Lake Hotel Graben. Now, a graben is a depressed area between two parallel faults. So this is a sunken area here, and you can barely make out the faults. There's one fault there, and here's the second fault here. And so that area is sinking while this area up in here is rising. Here's your lava dome here, and now here's lava flows. These are all lava flows from previous eruptions. Down here are some fissures. You can see those along the bottom. Fissures or faults. There's a bunch of them running this way, same as the lava dome. This all has to do with the uplift of this end of the lake. And then over here is another explosive crater, a big one. Now this happened. So now you got to remember, West Thumb was just formed 150,000 years ago. So these smaller explosions that have happened under the lake, they've happened, some of them 6,000 years ago, some of them 12,000 years ago, some of them 20,000 years ago. They're all fairly recent because the lake wasn't always here. So all these things are actually recent events. Actually in the more recent history as compared to the age of this volcano, because everything got destroyed 600,000 years ago when the entire caldera was formed. But this is all recent stuff, and this is stuff that could happen at any time. Here's some more hydrothermal vents. Here's landslide. This area here is a landslide where after an eruption the hills gave out and just slid into the lake, and this is all landslide material here and down in through here. Right here is actually, this red line is the actual edge of the huge caldera where the event that happened 600,000 years ago. And then up here's more explosive craters. There's a bunch of them around here, a bunch of hydrothermal explosions. Indian Pond right here, that is actually a crater from a hydrothermal explosion that happened more recently. So it doesn't necessarily have to happen under the lake. A hydrothermal explosion could happen anywhere in the park, but there's been a whole bunch of them under the lake. They're just now finding out about all the craters, and I'll show you some more craters here in a second. But what can happen, and this is something that could happen tomorrow, if you get an earthquake, just like where this graben here formed. If you have a large enough earthquake and you get enough movement of the land under the lake, you can have something like a tsunami. Now down in this area, down in here, they have found piles of sand up on the hill where they know in the past there have been earthquakes that basically caused a tsunami out of Lake Yellowstone. But what happens if enough land moves and you move enough water, see the weight from all this water is acting like a cap on all this stuff. And if you get a large enough earthquake to cause a tsunami, and if the water was to recede down this way for even a few minutes and then it would come back, but while that weight was gone, some things are going to explode because the weight that's holding it down just ain't there. And now that's possibly what happened here at Indian Pond. It's possibly what happened here, because this is all lava flows, so the water's not that deep here. This could all empty out if you had a large enough earthquake. Now let me go to another picture. Now this is more in the center of the lake. Here's Frank Island. Now if you look right below Frank Island, here's another rather large explosion crater from a hydrothermal explosion. Here's one that's real faint that was older. Here's an explosion crater. Here's the original caldera from the explosion, the huge explosion that happened 600,000 years ago. And up here, these are all lava flows that are under the water. And along the edge here, these are all lava flows. And then there's hydrothermal vents along the edge. These little dark holes here you see. Actually, let me move the camera up a little bit. Right there, see these little dark holes? Those are hydrothermal vents blowing out hot water. And so any of that stuff can explode if the water was to recede for whatever reason. Even if there was to be an extended drought and the water level of the lake was to drop 10 or 20 feet, it would possibly be enough to cause one or two of these hydrothermal explosions. Or an earthquake that moves this water around and relieves some of the pressure that's on top of this thing, acting like a cap. And let me see what else we got here. Hold on. Now I'm just going back to this map again real quick, just to remind you about all the active areas. All those red places here are active thermal areas where either it's a vent or an underwater geyser, or just some kind of thermal feature. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on under the lake that we don't see. Now let me go to the next slide. Here's another topographical map of the lake, and all these yellow dots are thermal areas, a thermal spring or a geyser or a vent. And you can see we just had that whole series of quakes right about in here. So the way these are shaped in a ring, you could have a second large explosion if this water was to disappear out of here somehow. It could happen again. What formed West Thumb, it could happen again. And then this whole, and here's your lava dome here, and this is all raised up, and you can see how active everything is around there. Now let me go to the next slide. Here's another map showing the lake, and then here's like your magma chamber underneath the park, and then these are the two, the Sour Creek Dome and Mallard Creek Dome. And this entire area is being raised up, just not the two domes. Now the two domes are higher than the rest, but the entire area is being raised up in the air, because you see it goes from 400 feet to 700 feet, and so it's a 300-foot uplift from the edge to the center of the where the uplift is happening. And see, part of the lake here falls within that uplift, and and I'll show you some another map of the plateau over here. An entire plateau under the lake is being raised up in the air over in this area here. And so we're going to go on to the next slide. Oh, and the red here is the original caldera from 600,000 years ago. And here's what's known as the raised plateau, which is under the it'd be the northeastern part of the main part of the lake. There's a whole area here that has uplifted and formed a large mound. And so I'm gonna go to an actual photo of what it looks like. This is a computer representation based on depth soundings. Now right here is that raised plateau. This is looking at it from above, and you can see all the active thermal vents that are happening all over the thing, all around it. You know, so, and this is in the more shallow part of the lake. So if an earthquake was to move this water south suddenly, you know, this thing could be one of those huge craters that we see from a hydrothermal explosion. And this is the same area. Here's the raised plateau here, and all the dark spots you see here, here, and here, and here, those are hot water vents. This thing's measuring temperature. This map it's looking at the bottom and it's measuring temperature. So this thing's pouring a lot of heat out. So this is one place that we need to worry about, you know, in our lifetime, anytime. Now I'm just going to show a couple slides about some oddities that happen on dry land and under the lake. This here is a picture of Monument Geyser Basin. Now, hold on, I'm going to change the slide. Now here's a close-up picture of Monument Geyser Basins. Now you get these silicon spires that form in these geothermal areas. And then they have found these. Let me show you another picture. And here's one that has formed up on the dry land in a geothermal area. Now let me show you a picture of the same thing that's under the Lake Yellowstone. Now here's a picture of one that they took under the Bay Bridge part of the Yellowstone, Lake Yellowstone. And it's the same thing, a silicon spire that has formed from one of the geothermal areas. And then here's one on dry land that's actually erupting at the time. And we're just going to end with this here map of Lake Yellowstone. All the yellow is either lava flows or thermal vents. And so anyhow, I just want to let people see. Normally you just see pictures of the lake. It just looks like a lake. You don't know what's under it. And when you get a series of earthquakes under the lake, it could lead to something disastrous. Luckily, these earthquakes weren't quite big enough. But if you get the same type of series of quakes, say up into the 6 or 7 magnitude range, some stuff could happen. And it's possible to get a quake like that. We haven't had one in a long time, but could happen anytime. So that's my video, and I want to let people know too. You know, watch these last 2 music videos I put on. All my other music videos are me just doing imitations of other people. You know, and some of those are pretty good if you want to check those out. You know, it's more of an impersonation of the singers is what I'm doing. But these last 2 videos, because I've tried to put on a couple of Eagles videos and I get copyright things. And I get banned, the video gets banned. So I bought the music without any vocals, and I did a couple of Eagles songs in my own voice, in my own way. And for a 60-year-old guy, I don't think they turned out too bad. One was A Peaceful Easy Feeling, and I did that one with more of a country type flair. And then the other one's Desperado, which I did more close to what the original song, how the song was written. But just check them out. I don't think it's too bad. And it's the first time I've used you know, I got this microphone that came with the stereo system I had. So I used this microphone, and it didn't sound too bad. So anyway, that's my report. We'll see. Oh, and check out my newest Coco video. I give her some catnip. She's acting pretty weird. But anyway, that's it. I'll see y'all later.